Con ustedes, Grant Asplund, Chief Cybersecurity Evangelist de Check Point.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining me today. My name's Grant Asplund. I'm with Checkpoint Software, and I have to briefly take a quick second and mention how much we really value and appreciate our long, more than 2 decades relationship with Maps. You know, Martin Mejia, an outstanding guy, and it's just put together a great organization that we love our relationship with and appreciate very much. And I am really excited to be here for IT Solutions Day. Let's just jump right in, okay? So I'm going to talk about kind of a different angle, I guess, or spin on this whole idea of security. It's really our biggest challenge now, and everything is moved to software defined, right? And as a result, we're using a different method, a posture and APIs as opposed to the traditional hands on our keyboard. It has some profound impacts. We're going to talk about some of them. Now, I suspect, pardon me, I suspect just about every one of you have heard the myriad of statistics and details about, you know, the unbelievable growth of the internet and the cloud, right? I mean, it's just going crazy. We know this. I don't really want to focus on that. I want to shift our perspective because this is what's more important. We need to temper our enthusiasm and realize this year, 2020, it's going to be about $4 trillion that we will spend on IT. But, you know, in 2018, what we spent on the cloud literally reflected less than 5%. So we need to change our tune and need to do a more effective, better job demonstrating, showing, proving the real value of the cloud, because it's there. And in fact, I can show you, ladies and gentlemen, right here from Gartner. This is from last October, written by Neil McDonald and Tom Kroll, how to make cloud more secure than your own data center. It is, in fact, possible. We'll talk about it. But listen, how many of you, and I apologize. I wish I could just rattle all of this off in Espanol, loco gringo, no español, poquito, cerveza. That's one of the best ones, and baño. But anyway, hey, how many of you have one of these behind your building, behind your home, powering everything in your life 24/7, 365? I'll bet not. And it is because it just is so simple to plug in and go. Now, there are some consequences of this, right? It takes nothing more than a credit card ban and you're up and running. So sprawl in so many ways can really be a problem. Now, I'm a simple man and I use analogies, so forgive me, but you've been the captain of your own ship with your own data center for the last 10 or 20 or however many years. You've chosen the ports to drop anchor. You've charted the course. You've chosen what goes into the cupboards and what you serve for meals. Truly the captain of your own ship. And now with public cloud, it's changing. And you could say you're going to be renting a slightly larger boat. Now, some of you may laugh or scoff at this and think, oh, this isn't accurate. But I can assure you, the previous ship that you've been captaining will never have more than the 1 bedroom it came with, unless you buy a new boat. Where this ship, and I'm mixing metaphors, of course, can literally at the click of a button have as many or as few servers, not bedrooms, that you need. That's the beauty, the scale, and the breathing capability of the cloud. But with it, there are concerns, because just because you've been the captain of your own ship for 2 decades or longer, it doesn't qualify you to step into this bridge and craft this ship, because this environment is designed to build and accommodate the Fortune 1 million and the Fortune 1. And it's all new and different, although seemingly very similar. There are many subtleties and nuances, and I'll talk about them, that can really get you into trouble. And so I always say, don't go it alone. Get some help, get some assistance, get some native tools that can help you. And in fact, back to this document, the first thing that Gartner suggests that we all invest in, and it's the first layer, is posture management in their pyramid of solutions. So there are things that you would just never see in your own data center that you will see in this new ship you're renting. And the first one I briefly mentioned before, it's sprawl. And if you remember when we virtualized, right, back in the 2000s, early 2000s, thank you, Stanford, right? I mean, all of a sudden now we went from only a fraction of the utilization of our appliances and our hardware to, something that was reasonable and we were pleased with. But we had new challenges, right? vMotion, that was new. Inter-VM communications, we needed new tools. Well, to quote the late, great Yogi Berra, it's deja vu all over again. And I always say it's exacerbated because now I can be anywhere in the world and I can spin up a new account, a new bucket, a new blob. I have that capability from anywhere, and sprawl really can be a problem. Now, one of the attributes that we unequivocally love about the cloud is also something you'd never see, and it's this I'm here, I'm gone, ephemeral nature. If you think about it from a security perspective, for years and years, if I said, hey, we need to go hunt down a problem, the first thing, or one of the first things we do is, hey, what's the IP address? And that would be kind of the starting point, right, of our process. But if you think about it in the cloud, if I'm using a function, it may have 6 IP addresses that it used for seconds, and they're gone. So the approaches that we've had have to change because of these new capabilities. And gosh, we love the fact that I need capacity, it's there. I don't need it, it's gone. But with that also introduces new challenges that you have to understand and be able to prepare for. Now, the other thing I'm going to suggest you won't see is, the kind of scale you have to contend with. I mentioned earlier, hey, you're the one that chooses what goes in the cupboards, and serving breakfast is pretty simple. But when you think about the scale up, scale down, and now trying to implement and assure full compliance, consistency, I mean, I'm telling you, drift is a huge problem in addition to sprawl. But you need to have tools that are constantly monitoring and assuring that as your ephemeral environment changes, you've got that absolute guaranteed consistence with regards to your compliance and your policy. All right. So we've got a report, the new one's coming out soon. This is from last year. See how it sizes up with you. I would suggest you're going to see multi-cloud is going to continue increasing, as well as hybrid, and that using single cloud is really a thing of the past. It's not something many people are doing. And it's because it's so easy, and there are look at, we all have a long tail that we want to pull along with us. That's why that hybrid is so high. But it's multi-cloud, and what we have to really appreciate is, I always say Azure AWS, Google, they're all summiting the same mountain, but they're taking different paths. And there's also some really interesting nuances and considerations when you look at something, for example, at like identity and access management. You know, with Microsoft and Azure, they've got something called Active Directory, and that plays a big role in that overall architecture. Amazon, Google, they don't have Active Directory, but they have to provide it. So it's different. Furthermore, there's no meeting of the public cloud providers on cadence and delivery of APIs and capabilities across their entire environment. And this is where it introduces a real challenge as you get into multi-cloud and hybrid. How do I unify and homogenize the management, the maintenance, the visibility across all those different environments? And this is data also coming from the report. What are the big headaches? Well, it's no surprise. It's compliance and visibility. And these are tightly coupled, because if I can't see it, I can't assure I am or am not in compliance. But this is also certainly true in terms of being able to control it, secure it. You have to have visibility. So these are two big things. And so if you take a step back and also appreciate you've got a hybrid or multi-cloud environment, assuring compliance uniformly across these disparate environments, having consistent visibility across these disparate environments, this is where it truly does become a headache. Now, again, a simple man, but I'm going to suggest these are both places that we can go swimming. And no one, ladies and gentlemen, not one of you can say that's not an accurate statement. But I would suggest for the on-premise data center analogy, I mean, the one on the left, you're going to worry much more about chlorine and pH and whether or not there's any bugs floating around or leaves, and maybe if there's enough water in the pool, because if there's not, you've got to go get the hose and fill it up. But the one on the right, probably not going to care so much about pH and chlorine, and maybe more about whether or not there's something in there that's going to bite you and eat you. And also the one on the right, with that waterfall implies it's always changing, churning, constantly on the move. And these are really accurate in very simple or oversimplified analogy of the nuanced differences between the two environments. But they're both places to go swimming. And you know, with this desire to depreciate, to maximize the utilization of tools, coupled with the just blazing pace of technology and constantly changing, it's hard, right? So we all want to try to use what we have. But I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, it is going to leave you wanting. It's going to fail. It's going to either have limited or not capable of doing the things that you need to have done in public cloud, in this native environment. And it's really why we need to seek out cloud native tools. And I would also suggest your cloud vendor has to be one that really is a platform across all of your cloud environments with compliance, security, threat hunting, all unified. It's imperative because those environments are truly becoming that complex. Now, one of the things that I wanted to show, and this is a portion of the presentation that I had actually put together with a great friend of mine who has just started her own company, Persolvo. Her name's Shira Shamban. But we wanted to show some data that really showed the concerns you should have about the cloud and how the bad guys are leveraging the newest technology, bots, automation, and it doesn't take them long to find out about it. So what we did is we stood up a cloud environment. okay? Nothing in it other than a username and password to get in, but we did put a honeypot up in front because we wanted to see what happened. This was really remarkable and shows the automation that's getting deployed, because immediately the bots went to work and said, hey, new account, let's go rattle doors, shake the knobs, the windows, see if we can get in with various attempts, scans, and so on. About 150 in the first 15 minutes, but nearly 4 million in the first week. And you can see the various types of attacks. But what this shows is that, man, they're out there just trolling for you. And oh, by the way, all to get in to nothing. So we really can't let our guard down. Now, this is where I'm kind of proud to say I almost, it was a fortune teller, a little, maybe I should say, I told the future a little bit. We put this, as I mentioned, this slide presentation, this portion together a couple of years ago, or not quite 2 years ago, but it was to show, a lot of people use MongoDB. This is a very, very popular database out in the wild. And I'm sure many, many, many of you are familiar with the website Shodan. So Shira and I used Shodan, and we found out there 60,400 and change instances or occurrences of MongoDB, okay? But what was frightening was that, 23,010 had either default or no password. Really frightening. Well, I guess I warned everyone, because this was published at the beginning of July, last month. And you can see nearly 23,000. I think it's an unbelievable coincidence that the numbers are so close, but it sounds like somebody took advantage of finally and exploited those poorly secured occurrences of MongoDB. So if there's a slide that really highlights how desperately you need visibility, it's this one. Because the fact is, 1 out of 4 don't even know if they've been hacked. I mean, that's remarkable. But this is a big problem in the cloud. Now, why? What's the reason for all this increased pressure? Because, ladies and gentlemen, it is so complex and there are subtleties. Let me give you an example. I heard a conversation where a network manager is commenting about how it should be no problem with an ELB. I've managed an F5 load balancer for years. And just because it has the same name, there's a difference between an elastic load balancer and an F5 box that's sitting in front of you. So there are numerous nuances that I can cite, but these are the ones that'll get you. Things like, burying passwords, but now you're using GitHub instead of storing it on site. Leaving ports open because that's how you've always done it, when now your data center's up in the cloud. That's like literally opening up the window to the world. So we have to really be much more cautious. And we are now so hyper connected, ladies and gentlemen. Everything is connected. We've got applications that aren't apps that we built, but they're apps that are components and assembled because I'm using some AI, and so I subscribe to a service from another company or from Amazon. And so these complexities are further exacerbating the complexities for our security teams, because they have to keep up with all this stuff and hang on to all the old stuff. It's really, really difficult. I've talked about the sprawl, and you have to appreciate a drift from policy. Sprawl, it's a huge concern. And so in the world of a swimming hole with a waterfall, it's constantly churning and changing. And so you need the tools that are able to constantly, continuously analyze and then subsequently enforce the appropriate security and compliance policies for your environment. Attack surfaces are getting gnarly. That's a word from the old rock and roll days. They're getting complex. They're getting very, very difficult because, again, I'm hyper connected with an application that's constructed. Maybe I'm using containers, Kubernetes, what have you. I may be actually having my primary on one cloud and my failover on another cloud. I've got services abound. I mean, it's really becoming difficult. And this new control plane, right? This idea, you have to understand, when we're using APIs, it's like a marionette, right? I'm not touching it, but I'm using these strings that are tied down to it and I'm controlling it. That's my analogy. More strings, more fine-grained movement, right? And as I mentioned previously, not all vendors are releasing APIs together. And so it's very, very lumpy on what's capable here versus what's capable there. This makes it very, very difficult. And all the while, it's pretty narrow field in terms of finding true native security solutions. You know, Gartner has publicly stated, it's in this same document I mentioned earlier, through 2023, at least 99%. Ladies and gentlemen, if it's at least 99%, it has nowhere to go down or up, at least not much. It's everyone. So this is an area people have to look to protect themselves against. So quickly, I'll just kind of show 3 examples of different types of exploits that we just have to understand. This is probably the one we've heard the most about, right? And this is the storage left exposed, unencrypted on the internet. Very common. We're seeing shifts from the vendors, however, from, say, default to unencrypted to defaulting to encrypted, but nonetheless, this still continues to happen. There's a lot of confusion on what's referred to as the shared security model or the shared responsibility model. Oversimplifies, but I mean, it's really spot on. In and of. Amazon, Microsoft, Google, of. That's what they're responsible for. That's what they secure. In, that's your responsibility. Everything that you put in. So anything that you're using that's up in the cloud, you've got to maintain and keep patched. And you've got to keep an eye on it because, you know, it's a very vulnerable aspect because we all know that stuff can get away from us. And then the third one I want to highlight is that super hyper connected world we're just rapidly moving to, where I've got so many moving parts. I have to ensure every single link in that chain is airtight and secure, because if there's a server-side error or compromise that is exploited somewhere else and then leads to me, these are the kinds of cloud native attacks we're going to start to see more and more of as more people are subscribing to different services and components of a larger application. You know, cloud networks are vulnerable. They are easy to, it's easy to sprawl. It's easy to lose the visibility. There's a lot of confusing things. And so I want to kind of go through some of the things that we see happening and that you might consider as you move forward. First, cloud providers are absolutely getting better. They're understanding and appreciating security is a huge issue for you. And don't get me wrong, this is not to say Amazon, Microsoft, or Google don't provide terrific, outstanding security within their own. The issue has more to do with homogenizing and harmonizing across a hybrid and multi-cloud environment, not the one standalone, because they do a great job, but their focus isn't security. They're doing a lot of different things. From an innovation perspective, you're seeing more and more cool things happening. It's very dynamic, but we're seeing more and more and more new tools coming out. The challenge, as I've mentioned, is that homogenization or harmonizing across all these different environments. That's where we need help. And the APIs are rich and flowing heavily, but it's still very lumpy. And this is why we need to really look for vendors that have a unequivocal commitment to the cloud and providing a complete, rich cloud native platform. And it has to also align with the trends that we're seeing, and I want to share some of them with you. If you haven't heard of it, you've been under a rock. And it's this whole idea of moving away from the traditional waterfall and even agile to the CI/CD pipeline model, this continuous innovation, inspection, continuous development, and having security be at every step of the way. This is capable now. But, I just am about to publish a blog that I, suggest that we teach right before we shift left. And what I mean is we need to make sure that we explain to our development team some of the challenges within network operations and security so they understand and they're on the same page. That's how you reach a true DevSecOps environment. Invite them to the meetings. Make sure you're really bringing them together. It will pay huge dividends in the end. Automation is the key. In fact, I'll refer back to the Neil McDonald, Thomas Kroll document. You have to automate if you want to achieve that more secure than your on-premise data center. And the tools are there and they're growing and it's really exciting, but you need to make sure you really understand, because a little teeny boo-boo can really have a significant consequence. And the other thing that's tough, man, is the number of new services are coming out all of the time. Makes it really, really difficult. And true security orchestration, it's maturing all of the time. More and more tools are getting better. Certainly, we're building out our platform every day. But the landscape is also shifting and changing today, so that makes it especially challenging. Now, containers are on fire, and it's predicted that they're going to just continue to really go, and it's because it's like it's perfect, right? It's all just to add water and shake almost. I mean, and this idea that you can have all of these different pieces that can snap and fit together, pretty exciting stuff. And I hope if you're not looking at it yet, you'll begin to. So I'm going to run through some recommendations, some guidelines. First, you need to protect everything. You can't leave anything unprotected, because as that chain gets longer and you're more hyper connected, it's just one link that'll get you. And everything you've been doing, you have to continue to do. It's not like you can abandon anything in this shared responsibility model. On the contrary, you really need new tools to address the new capabilities of this exciting new environment. You need to really bring your security and ops and development teams together and strive for a DevSecOps environment, because it'll, again, pay huge dividends. And when you're looking for platforms and tools, make sure it's public, it's private, it's SaaS, it's PaaS, it's containers, it's Kubernetes. All need to be protected and unified, harmonized across your environment. And then lastly, native, cloud native as often and every time you can. And if you're aligned with a vendor like us, sit your rep down and say, tell us your story on how it's going to get better and better. I think we've got a great story to tell, but I suggest you do that with any vendor because it really is that important. I've got some great resources. Happy to share them with any of you. Please send me an email. I'll have it posted at the end of the presentation. One of them is a really great ebook we put together with Amazon that really articulates the 6 steps you need to follow to achieve continuous compliance and automating your compliance in the cloud. It's a great resource. I'm happy to share it with any of you that would like to receive it. You know, if you haven't done it, find some standalone app that doesn't require any other app or anything else to run and go and test and begin. You know, the best way to get ahead is to get started. That was what Mark Twain said. It's really an exciting new world, the world of containers. I encourage you to go take a look. Now, I have another document that is really a great comprehensive document. It's called our Cloud Security Blueprint. This is our 2.0 version. It really does a great job articulating and explaining critical architectural designs like microsegmentation. And it's a really, really well done document. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I will offer it to anyone that would like to receive it. Please let me know. I'll make it available. So listen, you do have to protect you from you. You need to get some bumpers down that alleyway. So, you know, if you bowl, those balloon bumpers will make sure you stay out of the gutter. That's the posture management tool can do for you, because security is a challenge. It's complex. It's changing. It's very fluid. You need to make sure you're seeking out and building out cloud native tools, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Now, the other thing I want to make sure I point out, all you have to do is go to any one of the cloud providers and search for computer-based training, because there's either free or near free training. It's abundant. And there are really some great resources that you can align with. You can't let your hair down because the bad guys aren't. They're after you. So, muchas gracias, señor, señorita. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate your time. I hope you found this time well spent. I do have a podcast I'd like to invite you to listen to. It's called Talking Cloud, where you got it. We talk about all things cloud with a bit of a slant on security. And hey, send me an email. Let's connect on LinkedIn. Thank you again very much. Muchas gracias. I hope you have a wonderful day and good selling.
Agradecemos a Gran Asplund por su participación en el IT Solutions Day.